This Ukrainian Su-27 Flanker skims the earth at 2:40 p.m. local time, barely 500 feet above the rolling terrain of Kharkiv Oblast. The pilot fights pockets of turbulence while glancing at the iPad fixed to his cockpit rail. On that screen, coordinates for two reinforced concrete barracks in the village of Petrivka. Inside them, a Russian motor rifle company. 120 soldiers who have no idea their next hour of life has already begun counting down. But flying this low has triggered a chain of problems that could end this mission in exactly 42 seconds. Under each wing, the Flanker carries a BRU-61 rack holding 4 GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, American weapons bolted to Soviet air hardpoints, never meant to fit together. Ukrainian engineers welded custom adapters to make it possible, but at treetop altitude, the turbulence is brutal. The improvised mounts rattle with every downdraft. Each violent vibration threatens to shear metal that was never designed for this. And the bombs themselves create enormous parasitic drag, draining energy and fuel. The AL-31F engines are burning 15% more than planned. The pilot does a quick mental calculation. Enough fuel to hit Petrivka, release, and escape. Barely. The iPad display flickers. GPS momentarily switching to the Russian GLONASS constellation and back. The conflicting signals create a 50-meter drift in the coordinates. At 500 feet and 450 knots, the pilot has no spare hand to fix it. He'll have to correct the offset during the climb. Beneath him, the L-203 Gardenia ECM pod is running at full power, flooding the X-band with electronic noise. It's 1980s technology fighting 21st century radar systems. But every second it delays detection is another second closer to the release point, assuming he even makes it there. 120 kilometers to the northeast, the Russian 96 L6E cheeseboard radar sweeps the low horizon. This 3D search radar can track targets almost 300 kilometers away, but the pilot is flying in the terrain shadow, hugging hills so tightly that ground clutter hides his signature. Every time he crests a ridge, the radar catches a brief reflection. Inside his headset, the SPO-15 Berioza radar warning receiver stutters with intermittent beeps. The decades-old system cannot tell the difference between a casual sweep and an active lock. Uncertainty is its own threat. But the real danger will appear at 60 kilometers, when the S-400's 92N6E Gravestone fire control radar takes over. The pilot will have only seconds before a 48N6E missile launches his only survival strategy: stay below the radar horizon, which means staying in this thick, violent, low-altitude air. 7 kilometers from the pop-up point, he runs the checklist master arm. On weapon status, 3 green lights station 4, 1 flickering amber. The familiar grounding issue with the improvised adapter release parameters loaded. But the turbulence shakes the cockpit so violently that reading any gauge feels like trying to write during an earthquake. At the Russian base, everything is routine. The duty officer glances at radar tracks. Nothing unusual. The cheeseboard operator reports intermittent returns that appear and vanish. Probably ground clutter. Maybe a civilian aircraft near the border. Their Panzer S-1 point defense system is powered down for maintenance. Inside the 2 concrete barracks, soldiers are relaxing. They're 46 miles from Ukrainian territory, deep inside Russia. No one here expects a Ukrainian jet to reach them. Suddenly, the SPO-15's random chirps turn into a steady, urgent warble. Threat bearing 195 degrees. An SA-21 Growler acquisition radar from Belgorod has caught him as he crested a ridge. There is no more hiding. The pilot slams the throttles to maximum and pulls back. And those 42 seconds may be the last of his life. The Flanker surges upward, pulling 4.5 Gs at a steep 60-degree angle. The horizon disappears, replaced by pure blue sky. He trades the safety of the ground for the danger of open air, climbing into every Russian radar beam in Western Russia. But physics gives him no choice. The GBU-39s require altitude. They need the height to glide. The math is unforgiving. Reach 28,000 feet in 42 seconds. Warning lights spill across the cockpit. The fly-by-wire system protests, never designed to handle such aggressive inputs while carrying 4 250-pound American bombs mounted on improvised rails. The pilot fights nausea as the G-forces crush him into his seat. Left hand on throttle, right hand on the stick, feeling the jet rattling from strain. The SP-015 hits its highest alert tone. 20 kilometers behind him, a 48 N-6E missile erupts from its tube, climbing toward the sky on a blazing pillar. It will reach 35,000 feet, then dive on him at Mach 12. But missiles obey physics too. At the peak of his climb, the pilot will enter the kinematic dead zone, a brief slice of sky where the missile's motor burns out before it can tip forward. He must time this perfectly. At 25,000 feet, the left AL-31F engine suddenly surges. A sharp compressor stall ripples through the intake. The thin air and awkward flight profile with external stores are pushing the system out of its comfort zone. The pilot doesn't panic. Training takes over automatically. He eases the left throttle back to about 95%, matching power with the right engine. The surge clears, but the correction costs him precious altitude. Through the HUD, he watches the numbers climb again. 26,000. 26,500. The enemy missile is now 15 seconds from interception. Ice crystals begin forming across the canopy as the Su-27 climbs through 27,000 feet. He needs a clear visual reference of his aircraft's attitude before releasing weapons. But the frost seals nearly everything, except for a small patch he scraped clear with his glove. Through that tiny window, he sees the only thing that matters, the artificial horizon, showing wings level almost there. Then another complication. The weapons panel shows 3 green lights and 1 amber. Bomb 4 isn't arming. It's the same headache Ukrainian crews have been dealing with since they began mounting American precision bombs onto Soviet-era fighters. The adapter harness has a notorious grounding issue, and tonight it's acting up again. He toggles the master arm switch. Still amber. No time to troubleshoot. He'll drop it hot, trusting the bomb's internal circuitry to finalize arming after separation. 28,000 feet. He levels the jet for exactly 3 seconds, giving the fire control computer time to refine its release solution. The iPad, now stable in the quiet air at altitude, displays green targeting triangles centered over the designated buildings. Solution confirmed. Behind him, the SA-21 missile climbs past 33,000 feet, its seeker head waking up and beginning a wide-angle search. The AP-50 chaff dispensers trigger automatically, releasing sparkling clouds that bloom into thousands of false radar returns. But chaff only works if you maneuver. He presses the release. Bombs 1 and 2 fall cleanly from the left pylon with a dull mechanical thud. Half a second later, 3 and 4 drop from the right. The amber light for Bomb 4 snaps to green the moment it separates, the circuit finally completing through the disconnect. Now 4 GBU-39 small diameter bombs are gliding free, their diamond-shaped wings unfolding as they begin a long descent toward 2 buildings full of unsuspecting Russian troops. The instant the last bomb clears, the pilot slams the stick forward into a brutal negative G dive. The altimeter unwinds like a slot machine, except it's spitting out altitude instead of coins. Behind him, the SA-21 missile reaches its apex, scanning downward for a target that's suddenly dropping faster than its seeker can compensate. By the time the missile pitches over into pursuit, the Su-27 has already blasted past 15,000 feet, below the engagement envelope. The missile gives up, auto-detonating in midair, scattering expensive fragments across empty fields. The pilot has survived his part. But the mission isn't done. While he races towards safety, the 4 American smart bombs begin the deadliest physics problem ever written. They spread into formation, each carrying 36 pounds of explosive, gliding across 46 miles of Russian territory. Their diamondback wings give them a glide ratio of 15:1. 15 meters of forward travel for every meter of altitude lost. But before they reach their targets, they must cross a battlefield the eye can't see. 30 kilometers from Piotrivka, an R-330 Zhitel electronic warfare vehicle extends its spiral antennas. It begins jamming GPS frequencies, flooding the L1 and L2 bands with noise specifically designed to disrupt American guidance systems. Inside each bomb, the GPS receivers detect the interference and automatically switch to the encrypted L5 military band. But the L5 signal is less precise. Circular error grows from 3 feet to nearly 10. Against a building, still acceptable. Against a specific room, maybe not. Bomb number 2 loses GPS entirely at about 90 seconds into its glide. Its inertial navigation system takes over, but INS accuracy drifts with time. The error is already 15 meters and growing. The bomb's computer runs a Kalman filter comparison, evaluating old GPS data against INS readings, rejecting corrupted satellite updates and trying to approximate its original path. But without GPS refreshes, it is flying partially blind. Then, something unexpected. A Russian Ka-52 attack helicopter rises directly into the glide corridor. The pilot conducting his routine patrol, completely unaware that 4 smart weapons are approaching at nearly 380 miles per hour. The lead bomb's radar altimeter detects the helicopter as a collision threat. The onboard computer calculates the probability of impact and commands a shallow 5-degree sidestep. The formation splits smoothly, like water flowing around a stone, passing less than 200 meters from the Ka-52. The Russian pilot continues his patrol, never realizing he just drifted through the narrowest gap in the sky, between 4 precision weapons on their way to kill. At 8,000 feet, the bombs hit the first real challenge: weather. A 35-knot crosswind from the west tries to shove them off course, pushing them toward the apartment blocks east of the base. Each bomb's tail houses 4 tiny actuators, constantly adjusting the control surfaces. They work at full capacity, making rapid-fire corrections. But there's a limit. They can only deflect 15 degrees. If the wind strengthens even slightly, they won't be able to compensate. Bomb number 3 is struggling the most, its actuators buzzing near their mechanical limits. 8 kilometers from the target, a Tor M2U radar sweeps across the sky and catches 4 small returns descending at high subsonic speed. The operator stares at his screen. 4 signatures, small, fast. His training insists they're birds. The radar cross-section matches migrating geese. But geese don't fly in flawless formation at nearly 400 miles per hour. He tags the contacts and reports them. But by the time anyone reacts, the window for defense is already closing. The electronic warfare contest intensifies. The GTEL jammer boosts its output, trying to drown the bomb's GPS receivers in noise. But the GBU-39s use beam steering antennas that filter out interference, allowing them to continue navigating. It's a digital chess match at light speed. Suddenly, bomb number 2 reacquires GPS. Its positional error has grown to 30 meters, but the Kalman filter begins refining its path, pulling it steadily back onto course. 2 minutes to impact. The bombs descend through 5,000 feet, converging silently on their targets. From the ground, they are invisible. Too small to spot, too quiet to hear. Inside the eastern barracks, soldiers are playing cards and arguing about football. In the western building, dinner is being served. Someone complains the borscht is cold again. At the Petrivka command post, the duty officer finally interprets the TOR operator's report. 4 airborne objects. Characteristics match precision-guided munitions, bearing 270. Range, 5 kilometers and closing. His hand slams the alert switch. Sirens scream across the base. But physics doesn't care about alarms. Objects in motion stay in motion, and the bombs are seconds away. The Panzer S-1 crew chief drops his coffee and runs full speed toward the system. Bad timing. The vehicle was down for maintenance. Computers cold. Radar offline. Startup requires 45 seconds. He has less than 30. The 1RS-1-1E radar finally begins rotating, searching desperately for targets that should have been detected 5 minutes earlier. The twin 2A38M 30mm autocannons spool up, hydraulics screaming as the barrels swing skyward. The fire control computer boots trying to solve an impossible equation. Track 4 objects smaller than footballs moving at 380 miles per hour already inside minimum missile range. The 57 E6 SAMs in their tubes are useless. They need 1 to 2 kilometers to arm. The bombs are too close. Chaos erupts at Petrivka. Soldiers spill out of buildings, some diving into drainage ditches, others frozen in place. The Panzer's radar finally acquires the targets. Sort of. The bombs are flying so close together the system can't separate them. The computer defaults to firing at the center of the formation. Both cannons roar, vomiting 30mm tungsten at 5,000 rounds per minute. Metal fills the air, but the GBU-39s present a radar signature far smaller than the Panzer was designed to track. The shells chew empty sky, passing just 30 meters behind the lead bomb. At 500 feet, bomb number 3 finally wins its fight with the crosswind. A pocket of stable air lets its control surfaces bite and pull it back on target. All 4 bombs punch through the storm of defensive fire. The Panzer's guns swing desperately, but the bombs are already past. Terminal phase begins. At 14:51:03, the first GBU-39 spears through the roof like a steel needle. Its hardened nose cuts through 2 layers of reinforced concrete before the FMU-152 fuse reaches its programmed delay. Deep inside the building's core, 36 pounds of AFX-757 detonate. A shockwave of 5,000 PSI races outward at 5 kilometers per second. Concrete doesn't break, it liquefies. Steel doesn't bend, it vaporizes. The eastern barracks erupts outward, the facade exploding into shrapnel. Windows become blades, walls become weapons. 17 seconds later, bomb number 2 drills into the western side of the same building. Both detonations land within 6 feet of their programmed coordinates. The structure, already dying, folds into its footprint like a collapsing hotel. The western barracks take bombs number 3 and number 4 almost simultaneously. The first punches through the main entrance and detonates in the stairwell, exactly where soldiers are sprinting toward exits that no longer exist. The second tears through the center of the roof. 72 pounds of high explosive detonate within 1 second, combining their overpressure inside the structure. Shockwaves meet, multiply, and rip the building apart from within. It doesn't collapse, it disintegrates. Walls blown outward in a perfect flower of destruction. In under 30 seconds, 2 reinforced concrete barracks cease to exist. And now, every Russian base within glide range faces the same decision: move or be erased. He set the release parameters for current atmospheric conditions: a 5-knot headwind, standard temperature, and pressure at 29.92. The bomb's computer accounted for everything in its glide calculation.